All right, guys, so in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you exactly how one of my clients took his wholesaling real estate business from $50,000 per month to $200,000 consistently per month in 6 months, where his best month was literally $360,000 that just happened in his 6-month working with us. So Drew left a review on Trustpilot, basically saying that he was struggling to hit $100,000 consistently every month. He had no team, no processes, no system. That I helped him define his processes, hire his first employees, and find consistent revenue. They went from doing, around this point, losing 30K every couple of months to now they're consistently doing 200K in revenue per month. I'm not saying that, this is all a fluke and this is going to happen to you. But what I am saying is that if you follow the things I'm telling you in this video, that this can be a possible outcome for you if you put in the work. So just so you guys know who I am, my name is Chandler Saine, and I grew my wholesale company from $0 to $3 million by the age of 23. And I've also scaled 26 other wholesale companies to $100,000 per month in the last 2 years, which is about a 23% success rate based on total number of clients we've had, et cetera, et cetera. Here's a few examples over the past few months of other people having success, just so you know that this is legit. And like what I'm going to be telling you in this video is 100% backed by results, not just me just talking out of my ass. But the first person, Brian, had his first 6-figure month. This is all from this year. This is just from the last couple of months. Aaron crossed 100K just by implementing our lead manager system, which we'll be talking about a little bit today. Caleb closed 3 contracts in his first month and has 3 MLS deals active, $155,000 in the pipeline to close. It's huge. That's definitely a $100,000 month. Jaquez has 100K projected in his first month with Level Up. Bo closed his first 100K month in April, 102,000. Adam had 112. Joshua had 120. Nikki ended in 128 in March. And then Mark, they just joined as well. This is literally just in May, a couple weeks ago. And in their first 30 days, they have $117,000 within buyers already. And so they literally went from like 15K a month to $100,000 per month in 30 days, with just a few tweaks. And so I share that with you just to share that, hey, like I do know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm not only just like have done this myself, but I've done this for other people. And like hitting $100,000 per month, like the reason why I think it's so important is because one, it gives you like 4% of businesses do it. So like no one really does it. So it puts you in an echelon of people where you can go hang out with other people who you really want to do. And it gives you the ultimate time freedom to go and do things that you want to do, because you can make the money you want to make and have the time to hire the team, to buy back your time so you can go and do whatever you want to do. And that's why I think that's such an important thing. That's why I'm so passionate about doing this for people, because it's changed my life forever. And I want to do the same thing. So I'm going to tell you exactly how Drew did this. And so you can do the exact same thing as well. So Drew was doing about $50,000 per month on average. And he would literally lose 30K 1 month out of every quarter. I remember I met Drew. He told me this. It was super funny. He was like, I need your help. I keep losing money every quarter. And I just don't know what to do. I got no team. I got no processes. And honestly, I just feel like deals fall out of the sky. And I'm really stressed out all the time. So he had no consistency. He had no predictability. Deals closed randomly. It would just be a deal here, it'd be a deal there. There was no pipeline. There was no predictability in the business, which honestly, like, dude, would be stressful as hell. I would be stressed too. I've been there. I know what that's like. It's not fun. That's why we got to put systems in place, which I'll be talking about what that actually looks like. So where's Drew now? So like I said, he crossed 360K in gross profit in 1 month. It's literally almost $500,000 hitting his bank account in 1 single month. I mean, that for me, the first time we ever closed $502,000 in a month, it was like crazy to actually like realize that was like real. It doesn't even feel real. You feel like you kind of like feel almost like oddly confused as to what to do. So the amount of money that's so much money. Most people don't even make that money. Like if you were to ask a regular person who makes $50,000 a year, it would take them, what is that math? 7 years to make 360 grand. And Drew was able to do one single month. And so not only was he able to pay off all his student loans, but he had enough cash to live for multiple years without having to stress anything at all. So he built up his OpEx account, built up his savings account, fully funded his tax account, all the different things so that he has no stress for a long time. And you can't put a price tag on that. At least I can't. And he now knows exactly how to predictably grow his business into the future. And so those things right there are uber important, and you can't even value them, in my opinion. So how can you do this, and how did Drew do this? So what did Drew do? And there was 3 specific things that he did in order to make this happen, in my opinion. And the first thing was he implemented exactly what we told him to do. Second thing is he hired a lead manager, which you'll find out was a little bit more nuanced of a process. And then kind of what wrapped everything into this group and like what made this all work was we documented his processes and created systems. And so I'm going to walk you through exactly how we did each one of these things. So the first thing we did was we redid Drew's CRM because he was doing a lot of burnout, and we wanted to focus on the 80-20 to find out how Drew can make like 10 calls a day and still close multiple deals per month and not have to worry about going to do all this hassle. Because he's a one-man show. Like honestly, like if you're a one-man show and you're dealing with all this burnout, like you got to do this. Otherwise, you're just going to waste your time. And honestly, you should do this no matter what, because focusing on the 80-20, I was just listening to Hermosi talk about what he learned from the most successful private equity firm in the country that he knows of. And literally all they did was focus on the 80-20, and that's how they grew businesses. So it's like, this is the most important principle to know. And I learned this with the CRM through when we had 2 lead managers. And we were like, dude, we're getting 20 appointments a week. Let's just double our lead managers, and I bet we'll get 40. And lo and behold, when we did that, was we actually cut our appointments down by 50%. So we got less appointments and had double the people. And that was really like a pretty stumping scenario. And so what I figured out was it was the way our CRM was set up. And what most people, and like what the ideology I came up with was the CRM is just a haystack. And in the haystack sit needles. And needles are motivated sellers. And that's what we're trying to get to the other side, right? So we have this entire haystack where there's needles everywhere. And what I took to look at in the CRM is there are equal needles everywhere. So, let's just say that this is the entire CRM and these black dots represent needles. And this is kind of like what the CRM looks like. It's equal through everywhere. So if I just grabbed a piece of hay, wherever it was, let's just say it was over here. If I grabbed a piece of hay here, or grabbed a piece of hay here, or maybe even over here, the chance of it being a needle, would be 10% based on our conversions. It's a 10% chance that it's a needle. Well, what I found was actually what happened was the CRM looked more like this, where needles were only in part of the CRM. And so if I grabbed over here, my conversion rate to a needle might be like 0.5%. And then over here, my conversion rate to a needle might be 20 on this side. And so I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So because it just makes sense how you set your pipeline up, your CRM up, and I started putting it all together. So what I did was I built our CRM out in a way that would really focus on grabbing the needles instead of just grabbing hay and increase our probability, basically. So I'm going to show you exactly what we did to actually segment our CRM the right way. And this is exactly what we did to Drew's, and this will all make sense in just a second. So basically, we use Close. It's the best CRM that's not super complicated. So like in our business, we use Salesforce. A lot of our clients use Podio, but they switch over to Close because it's way, way better. And basically, we create what we call lead statuses. And this is like the core pillar to your CRM that actually makes it work. So we have our new leads. We have working leads, which working leads are just leads that we call but never contact, which means new leads should always be at 0. We have cold follow-up, warm follow-up, hot follow-up, dead lead, and appointment set. These are lead statuses. So a lead manager calls a lead, and there's 2 options. They answer or they don't answer. When they answer, it's pretty simple. They go into cold follow-up because they're just high price, not motivated. They go to warm follow-up because they're, they have like some future reason of selling. They're probably like 30 to 90 days out. So that they're like warm, but they're like not going to be an appointment because they're not ready yet. But they're not hot, obviously, and they're not going to be cold because they're not high price. There is some motivation there. They're just too far out. And we can overcome that objection. Hot is someone who should be an appointment, but is not yet. And so that's how we segment basically anyone who answers. Obviously, you got dead lead, and some people we set to an appointment. Those are going to be the outcomes if someone answers of what can happen. And if they do not answer, they go to working. And working is just simply they didn't answer. And so we're going to call this list over and over and over again because that's going to be where most of our appointments come from our cold calling, from our follow-up. Obviously, hot leads produces a ton as well. But that's how the system is set up. So it goes from new leads, we call them, and it either goes to working because they don't answer, or it goes to one of these stages because they do answer. And then once you segment that data, you know exactly like where to spend your time. So if you only have an hour to call, well, you're going to go through hot follow-ups first. And then you're going to go through your newest working leads. So leads that are like less than a couple of days old, and you're going to call those, and you're going to call your new leads. And that's going to be where you spend your time. Because if you spend your time elsewhere and only call cold follow-ups or have them all grouped together, you don't know if you're spending your time grabbing hay or grabbing needles. And we want to grab as many needles as possible. So that was a huge bonus and huge lever for Drew. And on the other side, just so you guys know what happens once it does get set to an appointment, is we have pending appointments. This is a huge thing. And basically this just means that like someone didn't show up to the appointment, or they no-showed or whatever. It's kind of like a no-show stage. And this is another super good bucket, because literally in the pending appointments bucket, these people already have raised their hand. They're already motivated. We already know that. They've already been qualified. All we need to do is just get them an offer and you get them back on the phone. So this is like the most valuable place you can just call if you have to call people just as a prospector, right? As a lead manager. And so that's huge. And then other than that, we set up appointment sets. So what appointments we have? We got cold, warm, hot. Basically just saying like these are 90-day plus from signing an agreement. Warm is 30 to 90. Hot is 30 or less. And the negotiation we see is signing an agreement in the next 7 days is our estimation. And this is how we move people through the pipeline. Because you want to move people through a pipeline where like your entire business always looks like this. Because if you know your business looks like this and everything is just moving through the funnel, then you can always have conversions between every different part of the business. So what it takes to go from lead to appointment, and you know what it takes to go from appointment to contract. And it's the same thing for your pipeline with your salespeople. Is they need to understand how to take people from cold to warm, to hot, to negotiation. Because if they don't understand that, then they don't understand how to build pipeline and maintain it. Because if appointment flow slows down for 1 week at a time, as a business owner, you need to make sure deals keep getting signed. And the only way deals are going to keep getting signed is if you actually have a good pipeline. Because if your pipeline's bad, it's not going to work. Almost guaranteed. And so you can just take a screenshot of these if you want to add the rest of those to your system. But definitely recommend Close. If you want a 14-day free trial and Close, just go down below the link in the bio. There's a link called Level Up Trusted. Just go there and you'll be able to get the 14-day free trial there. No credit card needed on that. So let's get back to Drew's transformation. We did that. The next thing we did was we tracked his KPIs weekly. And so this seems super elementary, but I'll show you exactly what he did. Let me see if I can find his KPIs. So like I said, we started tracking KPIs, and this is literally all we did each week is we had him track his new leads, his appointments, his offers, his contract signed, his closings that he had, his new revenues that he signed with buyers, and his gross profit. Because these metrics, tracking them every week, are going to improve your business drastically because you're just going to know. It's like if you just put attention on a number, then like because you're a high achiever, then you're going to just improve that number over time. Like if you know you need to get one offer a day out and you just consistently don't get that, but you don't care if there's no number. But if you see that, oh man, I only get 2 offers a week out, I need to be getting 5. Like, what am I doing? You're going to just naturally improve that number just by looking at it, just self-accountability. And that's step 1 of like what helped Drew. But also step 2 of it is it allows us to project the business and know exactly what we need to do as we hire a team on how to continually keep our business consistent and improve it every time. So literally all you gotta do is track these, what is this? 7 numbers every single week, which should be extremely easy. And just track these every week. Just start doing it literally today. Start doing it today. Just copy the sheet and track it every week and do it today. It's that easy. And that right there allowed us to identify that Drew thought his close rate was 30%. He thought he went and closed 1/3 of every offer he gave, every appointment he went on, which historically he had. But in the moment that we started working with him, he was closing 10%. And so that's why he was going up and down, is because he wasn't following the sales process that he had for himself. He wasn't doing follow-up. He wasn't doing a lot of things that he needed to do. And all it took was him looking at the numbers every single week and be like, dude, like I identify as a great salesperson, but I'm not doing a great job. And then that boom right there had a 100K month 30 days later, just from doing that one thing. And that won't happen for everyone, but if you're talented and if you work hard, then you will drastically increase your business if you're doing the right things. If you're focused on offers, if you're focused on quality deals, focus on deal size, focus on all those things, these things will drastically help you. Third thing is we implemented wholesales. So Drew, his average deal size was big to begin with. It was $38,000. He was in Denver, Colorado, super large houses. And he was wholesaling to New Western, which is honestly really impressive to have a $38,000 average deal size, which, I would say like most people are probably like 25 if they're doing that same thing in Denver. So he was definitely good there. The thing that we saw as a huge opportunity is all these wholesales that he was doing is they really were huge rips because the price points in Denver is average, median's like 550 or 600. So you realistically should be like able to make $60,000-$70,000 on a deal out here. Pretty like that should be like not super uncommon. Like $40,000-$50,000 deals should be super common. Just like San Diego, just like Southern California. This is just a great market. So we saw in these hotels that, hey, summer's heating up. So we were in spring at the time. So like April. Said, dude, you got a couple banger deals here. Let's buy them and then put them on the open market to the best buyer pool. And instead of making 40 or 50, let's make like 100 to 150. And so we did that for two of them. And one of them ended up making, I believe, 125 ish. And another one made about 150. And so just doing that drastically increased the average deal size and made it significantly easier to go and do more deals. So, and I know this might seem completely unrealistic for most of you guys, but this is the reason, like, you don't wholesale. The reason you wholesale is for cash and not needing money up front. But once you have money, at least some money, or have connections to go and find people who can fund your deals for you to where you don't have to bring money to the table and you can just maximize deals to the higher level, then you should always be able to wholesale and make 20%, 15 to 20% of your purchase, of your sale price. So like if you're selling a property for $300,000, you should at minimum make 60 grand, 100%. That's what you should be shooting for. And that should be very, very feasible in any market. And so if you're doing a $500,000 sale, then a $100,000 deal is super common, is going to happen a lot. And so I want you guys to be thinking is like, there's only two things that matter in business, and it's your cost per acquisition and it's your average deal size. If you can have a bigger gap between the two, which means you have a larger ROI, you're going to make way more money, because at the end of the day, volume is what takes effort and what costs money and is what really makes your business way less efficient. So if you have a small deal size, like I had a friend who they were doing about 100 deals a month, but their average deal size was like $9 grand. Now, granted, it's still a pretty sick business, but dude, like that sucks. You gotta have so many people, and like it just is so hard to scale that. Whereas if they were doing 100, like let's just say they were doing 10 deals a month, but they were all like 60 grand, they would have way less people in their team and they would be way more profitable and it'd be a way more fun business to run. And that's very feasible at that kind of volume. So I just want you guys to be looking at like, how do I maximize my deal size so I can have more cash flow to invest more into marketing and really have more wiggle room basically to play with building your team up. And so that's why wholesales are so critical. If you don't do them, well, I really suggest you start, but be careful. Don't be dumb about it. Make sure you're making 20%, because we had one deal where we thought we were going to make 80 grand and then the market turned a bit. We were, the house was selling for about 310 was what we thought we were going to sell it for. We ended up making $5,000. It took 180 days to sell the property, and we had 51 walkthroughs. So our costs went drastically up. Our profit was all diminished because the market shifted. And we actually had a mistake in our underwriting, not knowing the effect that the slowing market would have on this property, because the rooms were a little smaller and it was backing a major highway. Or sorry, it was on a kind of a major highway, as like a main road. And so because of all of that, it took what we thought our price was going to be like 310, and really it was like 270. So it like instantly dropped it so much, and like we just didn't know that was going to happen, because it was just a naivety thing. It was a thing that we hadn't seen before in the past market affect it. And then boom, all of a sudden it did. And we almost got stuck holding the bag, but we didn't, because we made sure we stuck by our rule of making 20% or more on a deal. And so just want you guys to know that like there is an inherent risk in this, but if you do it right and you do it conservatively, you'll be fine. You'll make money. There's always risk in everything you do. And the fourth thing we started doing was we started using property leads for supplemental lead flow. And basically the reason for this is because Drew was doing PPC as his main marketing channel. And like his costs for PPC were kind of high because he was in Denver, but he was closing about 1 in 10, 1 in 12 leads to a deal. So it was costing him around 8 to 10 grand to get a deal for an average deal size of 38K, which is solid. Anyone would be happy with those numbers. Like that's just a solid ROI. It's like a 3.5 to 4x ROI on an inbound channel for just himself to go and do. But the lead flow was kind of like this. It was always up and down, and there was never really consistency of like when leads were going to come in that were going to be quality. So that's kind of like why he felt like deals were just flying out of the sky, and he would just fall into a deal that made 30 grand, 40 grand. because his cash cycle is quick because he's wholesaling it, and because it was PPC leads, they convert from lead to close super fast. So that's why he felt like that. And so the weeks that came where he got no quality leads, it was super stressful for him. And so what we started doing was we used property leads as supplemental lead flow, because that's the best PPL company that we've found across the board, them and LeadZolo. Again, like if you need the link to go and work with property leads, just go down in my bio to the Level Up Trusted tab, click the link and go sign up for property leads. But super solid there. I recommend them. Everyone across the country that I know who's using them is having great success. If you are going to use property leads, my recommendation, what I've seen, the only time I've seen it fail is when one of my clients is doing like the nationwide campaign. It didn't work. Don't do that. Just do like for your market. Make sure you're going after the best properties possible that you can sell for the most. Like that's going to be the reason that it works. And he had a 4x ROI on this. It's also the same type of thing. It's like just more consistent lead flow. Really what property leads did was it took a business from looking like this, like really up and down, to just like doing a little bit more of this. You're still going to have ups and downs, but the differences between this and this from stress is a lot less. From having 1 lead to 10 leads, from having like 3 to like 6 or something like that, right? Maybe it goes up to 10, but you get the gist, you get the idea. The valleys are lower and the peaks are higher. So nonetheless, that is all we did from a very simple day one perspective. There was plenty more things that we did over time, like small changes on implementing these things, making sure they're done correctly, documenting processes for hiring lead managers. We're going to go over next, which is honestly super big roller coaster, which you'll find out. But there's tons of different things that we did, but from a very simple levers perspective, these were the things that we focused on that really drove a lot of the outcomes. And the other thing that drove a lot of the outcome was hiring a lead manager. And the reason hiring a lead manager is such a huge thing, and like I guess like before we even go into the reason, but what is a lead manager? Even for those of you who don't know, it's basically someone who qualifies your leads for you and does all your follow-up for you, to where you're just getting automated appointments on your calendar. And that's what a lead manager is, and that's what it does. And the reason why this was so critical for Drew is because, like I said earlier, he's facing burnout. So he wasn't like motivated to go and cold call his CRM, call these new leads. Like even though there's like money, it just like once you reach that point of burnout, it's like really hard to even like force yourself to go do something else. And so like you have to have a change. And this is the change that I see that makes the most sense for him in his situation, where he doesn't have the motivation at the time to go do follow-up, doesn't have the motivation at the time to go and call new leads. And so he just wants to go on appointments and close deals. So how do we just get him in that spot? And the only way to do that is by having a lead manager. So that was number one. What we did first was we had to document the lead manager script. And so I'm going to show you exactly the script that we made, and I'm going to walk you through how we created that so you can go and do it for yourself. All right, so this is the script that me and Drew created. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how we did this, from having a complete blank canvas to creating a script that you can give to your team to have them follow over and over again perfectly. And I think the script, personally, before we get into this, is the most important thing, because if you have a dialed in script, you don't need anyone to think. You just need them to literally follow the script and say it the way that you want them to say it, and it's going to literally work, guaranteed. That's the number one reason that our sales team goes in a slump, is because they're not doing the process the right way. That's every single time. So this script, this is a follow-up script. I couldn't find the initial call script. All that's different is a little bit of this first section of the intro. But basically, don't worry about that right now. It's kind of irrelevant. The point that I want to make across is, how do we get this onto paper? So when I'm with Drew, I asked him, I said, and this is the questions you should ask yourself. So if you want, pull up a Google Doc and listen to me and start writing, right? If you need to pause it, do whatever you need. But the first question I'd ask is like, hey, dude, you call me. What's the first thing you're saying to me? Okay. So you write that down. Once you do that, all you're going to do from there is like, okay, well, what could I get? What would the seller say back to me as the possible different outcomes? And you want to like simplify this as much as possible. So for me, like my brain condenses things very easily, and that's very natural for me. But if you don't condense things down to where there's like 3 outcomes, is if they want an offer, that's like outcome 1. Maybe they just like want to meet you at some point. They're kind of like kicking the can down the road, or maybe they just don't want to sell it already at all, or it's already sold, or whatever it is. Like those are the 3 scenarios that we came up with. But if you have a list, just have a list and then try to make it less and less and less outcomes over time. And that'll make your process and script much better. But there's 3 processes here. We just determine if they want an offer, we're going to move them to the motivation situation phase. So the next thing is like, basically, if they do want to meet us down at some point, to maybe talk about the property. They're kind of just kick the can down the road. Is we're going to objection handle that and try to figure out if they're actually just trying to waste time or if they're actually motivated. And usually you can go through that all very easily. And I would create an objection on this document. There's not an objection handling place just because this is a document we created very quickly, and he probably copied and pasted it, moved it to his own thing. But nonetheless, is you're going to just have a little objection handling phase, right? It's like, do this, do that, do this. That's it. And then if they don't want to sell, we just move them to unqualified. Obviously it's like, what changed? You guys not looking to sell anymore, that kind of stuff, right? That's essentially it. That's all the outcomes it can have. Okay, cool. What does the motivation situation phase look like? All right. And then in this phase, to me, this is the hardest one to process. But what we've done is have a number of Socratic questions or type of questions, like connecting questions that you need to ask. So in Drew's scenario, what he did is like, cool, ask 3 deep connecting questions to find out if there is motivation. So on the lead manager call, you just want to find out, hey, is there motivation? Do we think there's motivation? You don't need to dive into like the pain. You just need to dive into like, no, is it there? And if it's there, then all we're going to do is we're going to set up an appointment. That's it. So this is the entire first call is, okay, cool. Do you want an offer? Yeah, you do. All right, sick. Well, tell me a little bit about like, what even had you interested in selling? All right, man, how long has that been going on? All that kind of stuff, right? You guys know the sales. It's not sales training. But nonetheless, we're going to go in. If they're motivated, we're going to set next expectations for the next call, which is going to be an appointment. And then from there, we're just going to set it up. And there's a few brief instructions on how to set the appointment, all that kind of stuff. But what I want you guys to know is that it's super simple to just get someone qualified to go on an appointment with them. And if they're an inbound lead, like in this scenario, then you have to assume motivation. So you don't really need any heavy qualifying. If you've used our script, the diagnosis call script, it's a little bit more intense. And that's because a lot of our business at that point when we created that was an outbound lead. So as inbound leads come in, we just don't like disqualify them as fast, right? We're not disqualifying people at all if they're inbound leads. We're really just taking them through the script, finding out if they have motivation, and then boom, getting them on the calendar for an appointment. And that's literally it. And so that's how we created this process for Drew's lead manager to follow, because that's the first thing we need to do. Once we have this, we need to go and create an onboarding, which the onboarding you can see here is pretty simple. What we did was I created a template that you can copy for our clients. But essentially what we did was we went through and we made up some to-dos for like things that need to get done with the system to actually have this person like be onboarded. And then we had like the training videos that we needed to get made to be able to go and train this guy. So very simple. All we did to onboard these people was we had a video explanation of the script. We got 5 good phone calls for them to listen to with Loom video recordings. And then we taught them how to go through Salesforce. Because all you need to know is be able to master the script. You need to know what good phone calls look like and why they're good. And then you need to know how to go through Salesforce. And then once you do that, you just need to get ramped up to speed very quickly by doing some role plays, by shadowing, and then making calls, reviewing calls, role playing, and repeating. Just onboarding training stuff. So it's like really quite simple. So like if you guys don't know how to onboard people, you just need to map out what to-dos you need to have done for the system to actually work right. And then what trainings do you need to get done in order for this person to actually have success? The one other piece to this that is not on this document that is super important is you have to have expectations for what the first 30, 60, and 90 days look like. So for a lead manager, and for everyone's business, it's a little bit different, but for a lead manager, generally what you want to see is in the first 14 days, and I like 14 days as well because it gives you a good first benchmark where you can churn people super quick, is the first 14 days they need to set 5 good appointments. And they need to do this from not having any new leads. And then once they set 5 good appointments from not having any good leads, they can get access to the new leads. Some people, if you're more established, make them get a contract first. But if you don't have very much going on, just get them in new leads right away after they set 5 good appointments, that is. And then the first 30 days, they need to get 1 contract signed. The next 60 days, they need 3 contracts signed. And then the next 30 days, 60 to 90 days, they need 4 contracts signed for every month after that as well. And that's literally the expectation. So if they ever miss that, you got to put them on a PIP and churn them and get someone new. And that's literally the process. So all you need to do is pretty much just follow a simple onboarding process. I'll just show you guys like what this document looks like. But essentially like what our onboarding is composed of is access information, training expectations, and then a sales process education. So like teach them the script and then teach them the CRM. And then once you do that, basically you can this is like some stuff of like how to actually go through and onboard this person's like rules of thumb. Like, you want to talk to them 1 hour a day, at least. So you can go through, train them, like do call reviews, role plays, all this kind of stuff. This is like best practices. And then like just generally what calls do you want to do? And in my opinion, like if you talk to this person and make them feel engaged at the very beginning and you set good expectations for what's going to happen, then you're going to have a way better likelihood of having success over time. And the reason why I want to do an onboarding first and not later is because if I know that I have this onboarding created before I hire someone, then I know exactly what expectations I need to give them on the hiring process, which when we went to hire these people, we didn't have the onboarding made before the first guy was hired. And that was my fault. And I learned that from a lesson because I forgot I learned that like 3.5-ish years ago before we hired our first lead manager. But it's super important to have that onboarding created before you hire that person, because then you know exactly what expectations to set for that person. So it's not a mystery when they get hired. Like the way I would describe this is like, imagine you hired a closer or an acquisitions guy who's going to only take hot appointments all day. That's like the expectation they have in their head. But then you get in and you make them cold call and go door knock foreclosures. If that's the expectation set that they are only going to be having hot appointments on their calendar, and you get in and you got to go door knock, like you're not going to like want to do that. You're going to leave like ASAP. So that's like the exact same scenario that we're trying to prevent by having better expectations in the hiring process, which having an onboarding is going to help you tremendously. All right. So let's go through this. We started hiring. What is the job hire? What is the job? Yeah. All right. So we started hiring. So the first question I asked Drew was, hey man, who do you have in your network that like could do this job? And like we talked about like what the job was and like, who we're kind of looking for, how we're looking for someone who's really good at talking to people and could do the same things over and over again. And he's had one guy in mind. His name was Tony. But he reached out to Tony and Tony never got back to him. And we just kind of like, we're like, okay, well, I guess like, he's like, I reached out and he never got back to me. So that was like, all right, well, I guess we had to go and, find someone on the job boards. And so that's what we went and did. And the reason why I say the first hire was a flop is because the expectations weren't set right at the beginning, which we fixed, but we could have saved ourselves a week of time if we would have had this stuff all dialed in before on the onboarding process. So the first guy we hired, he was the wrong type of guy. He was a little bit combative once he got hired, which in the interview process, looking back on it, we found a very subtle key that he gave away that kind of like foreshadowed what he would be in the future. And it was basically the first conversation. He was a little bit like, why are you calling me kind of thing? Like, who are you like to call me? Like, that kind of like vibe. It wasn't like super off, but it was like slightly off. And it's like this subtle key that, hey, if you're not blown away on the first call, like this is like the best guy you've ever talked to, then you shouldn't hire him. And it's like the whole process, the guy was good enough to like give a chance to, but he wasn't like so good where you're like, yeah, this guy's definitely going to crush it. It was like, yeah, this guy, like he's got experience. He's done the role before. He didn't like blow me away, but he didn't like make me feel like he couldn't do the job. And to me, that mixed with some other red flags you might see through just like subtleties is enough to not hire someone. So it's like, if you're not like it's either got to be a hell yes or it's a hell no. So if it's not a hell yes, then just don't hire them. And that's what I've learned through this process of hiring hundreds and hundreds of people and helping my clients do the same thing. The second hire, we had everything dialed in. So we had the onboarding already created. I guess with the first guy, let me tell you a little bit of the story. This guy got hired for about 2 weeks. He was working. He produced some deals. I think he produced one deal, actually, is all he produced. He was producing some appointments, but he wasn't hitting his KPIs and he wasn't coachable at all. And he was kind of like a dick about it. So he got fired after 2 weeks. And that was just, it sucked, but it was what it was. It is what it is. The second hire, we had the onboarding. So we knew exactly what expectations needed to be set on the actual hiring call. So Drew went through it super confidently. We found a person who had worked for a really good home buyer in the past. And essentially, she was really great on the role play. She trained tons of salespeople. And I think what had happened was we set expectations really hard. So like Drew, you're going to be calling from, 10 to 7 p.m. Mountain Time. You're going to be working on call. If a lead comes in, you got to be able to answer like the whole nine. Like if you don't hit KPI, you got to work on Saturday. And she was about it on the call. She was about it on the interview. So she accepted it. And the reason why we were a little bit worrisome is because she was a little bit older. She was like 45. And the reason we took a chance on this is like we already have some other people in the pipeline who will probably interview and hire if she doesn't work out, that we just were taken through. So it was like worst case scenario is like, maybe she sets a few appointments and quits in like 7 days. And we have another person just coming in behind him. So it's like not that big of a hassle. We weren't like losing, opportunity cost was extremely low. So she came in 3 days in, she realized she didn't want to commit to making all these calls and doing all this work. So she dipped out. Luckily we had Tony actually come back in the mix, and he was like perfect from the sense of he was a super good culture fit. And he had experience in the job. And the biggest thing is he wanted to win and be great. So he like really cared about this job. He always like he was the type of person who got people sending him referral deals after he had left his past company, and still had deals coming to him from people he had just done follow up with. And as a lead manager, that's honestly really impressive. So that's like, we knew that guy was going to be good. It was just like, how do we get him on board? And so we ended up having to pay him a little bit higher base and pay him the same commission. So he got a little bit, bigger bump, but he came in right away, was setting 1-2 appointments a day, which was honestly this was the biggest catalyst, and actually taking Drew from around 100K a month to consistently doing 200K a month. And like, that was like the biggest bump in the business, was this one hire. And like, yes, we had to pay a base that was probably twice as much as like a normal person would get. But if you pay someone like a twice as much base, which gives them probably about a 30% increase in salary, you're going to get, like, we probably get over double the productivity from this guy than we would have anyone else. Anyone else would come in, probably set like 3 to 5 appointments a week, whereas Tony's doing over double that. And if you close at 30% of the appointments that are set, then you know how valuable every 3 or 4 appointments is, because it's a deal. And if your deal size is 38K, every 3 or 4 appointments is worth 40 grand to you. So that's like kind of a no-brainer to pay a little bit more to get someone better who can do way more output, keep your business way more efficient. And so essentially what I want to tell you guys is like, start with your network, be extremely clear on what you want and how you want it done and the expectations that are needed, so that when you go through the hiring process, you're able to share that with the people, which is going to attract the right people and deter the wrong people. So if you make the job sound like it's going to be hard, make the job sound like it's going to be rewarding, and that you're going to have to be super coachable because it's not easy, and you're going to have to learn a lot to be able to be successful in this, and you may not be successful right away, you're going to move out all the people who want it easy, not going to work hard, not go-getters, and you're going to attract the people who like want to grind. And that's what you want in this role. Because if you don't get that, you can't get someone who can just make 150, 200 dials a day. You're going to struggle forever until you fix that bottleneck. And so that's why this is so important. So hopefully this video was super valuable for you guys. If you want any help from us specifically on hiring a lead manager, helping you onboard them, to implementing the haystack method with the CRM, so you're not grabbing random pieces of hay, just hoping it's a needle, or whatever we talked about in this video. If any of it resonated with you and you want to find out how we can help you specifically, just go down below this video, click the link below, and book a call with my team. And on that call, we'll tell you exactly how we can help you specifically. And yeah, if not, we will see you guys on the next video, and I appreciate you guys. Peace.